14. Now serving. The potatoes and meat slid onto the wooden table. "Gravy?" asked the barmaid. The map was gone. The cowled figure was gone. It had happened so quickly. The steam from the potatoes had scarcely risen over the height of the candle. With no contact and no map, the quest was gone too. Or else, about to begin. "Hey!" Chagall pushed over the table, meals and all, to reach past the barmaid and grab the hem of the mysterious elf maiden's robe. But no woman was she. Her red cowl fell back to reveal some stringy, silvery blue hair, and there the similarity with woman or man ended. The yellowed skull was visible from the temples down. The entire face was bone, the body a skeleton. A thick, slurpy tongue darted out of her mouth to lick the side of Chagall's face. He froze still, right where he was.
"What a kiss!" exclaimed Triton. He'd been too close to death all day to shirk the irony of having made a pass at death herself. She marched alongside the bar toward the door. At a touch from Ilaria, Chagall shook off his paralysis, and with a roar welling up from deep within, in a burst of energy, the barbarian sprinted through the tavern and tackled the skeleton creature. They wrestled. Her long bones were held together by some unseen sinewy force. Tables broke under them. Patrons scooted out of the way. Chagall threw her up on the bar with a clatter. She kicked him off with a surprisingly powerful bone leg. Thud as he hit the floor. She sprinted clickety-clack across the bar, her skeletal feet stepping into a pot of boiling potatoes and over the hot grill without a flinch. At the same moment, the barmaid had made another acquisition. The map itself. She'd snatched the bone tomb away from the skeleton as it had passed by. But this time Edmund was hip to her thievery. He spotted the acquisition and withdrew his dagger to plunge it into her chest. As his fist connected with a hollow thump, he realized his monogrammed dagger wasn't in hand, and she slashed him with it across the face. "Ouch!" cried the nobleman.
"Missing something, Richie Rich?" Waving the silver dagger before slashing it toward Edmund again. He twisted away and almost fell. Ilaria steadied him with her hand. Her symbol of tea time glowed under her clothes.
And the wound on Edmund's face closed before the blood pouring down could drip on his white checkered silk shirt. Then an egg hit the ground and cracked open. Its yellow yolk jiggled between two oak floorboards. The bar went silent. Even the skeleton and the barbarian paused mid-grapple.
A bard stood up on her table in the middle of the room with all the grace of a true elf.
She nodded toward Korik the half-orc. The half-orc's axe swung free in an arc around her head. The broken egg lay at her feet. The bard cleared her throat.
Hello, everyone. I'm Lyre Silverstream. This is my first time playing at the Golden Dragon Tavern. But, well, here we go. And I hope you like it. Remember to tip. Keep the silver streaming. Lyre struck up a jaunty tune. This was her first gig inside doors. This was her big moment.
She wouldn't be upstaged by a commotion in the bar. The song was a special one, and for a moment, her song held sway. The pair of dwarves smiled up at her, the taller of the two anyway. The other one just stood, with his arms crossed, while his counterpart clutched a glass of beer and a long line of empties.
Dwarves are so interesting in their way, with their sensitive noses, beards growing down to accent their dimensionality. It wasn't an aesthetic Lyre cared for, but having an aesthetic to accent one's difference, one's strangeness, was something she appreciated. She had horns herself, and wasn't sure what to do with them. At least dwarves have a way of classifying noses, know what to look for, what to hide, what to embellish. I don't know what to do with my oddity. I could paint my horns, she thought with some inspiration, perhaps to match my eyes. In Ya'amon, she simply kept them hidden under 2 mounds of hair. Oops!
Her finger slipped off a string and she plucked a sharp note. The spell was broken. Everything and everyone careened into motion. Rose the imp floated out of the fire and gobbled the meat off the ground next to the upturned table. The tall, humorless Bale pulled his mace from his hip holster and swung it backhanded at Edmund, who now held the bone scroll tube containing the map. Edmund's attack had been just another feint in a series of picked pockets. "Get them!" Bale cried to his band. The wizard at the table snapped his spellbook closed and pointed a finger at Ilaria. A soft glow began at the fellow's ears and built down his arm toward his finger. Triton, his mouth full of food, leaped out of his chair, a pile of potatoes falling off of his lap, jumped over the flaming imp, charged through the middle of Lyre's concert, ducked under Bale's mace swing, and, squaring his fist, punched the novice mage right in the nose before the spell could go off. The apprentice went down, unconscious, with his precious spellbook clutched to his chest. "What?" asked Triton as Ilaria leveled a reproachful stare. "He was about to cast a spell on you." Triton kicked the mage's elbow, and the finger, still glowing, discharged a flying bolt of energy into a bar stool. The mariner perched there, leapt off it as it burst in a shower of splinters. He merely moved to another. "This is my quest!" shouted Bale as his mace swung wide of Edmund. He brought it around in an arc toward Triton. There was a moment when someone could have intercepted the swing, and that was just the moment Gnarls chose to steal the neophyte mage's spellbook. "I mean, who walks into the bar holding his spellbook up to his chest? Those things are valuable. You've got to hide that stuff. Hasn't he heard of a large sack?" Gnarls reached out to grab the book, only to find that 3 other bar patrons had the same idea.
They was salted and rough, with blades in hand and faces dripping wax, as they say in Charles, where Gnarls is from. Now, it was Gnarls' turn to cast a spell. He withdrew an energetic little lizard from his pouch and pet its head gently. "Sleep, little one, sleep," he whispered. The lizard closed its eyes and drooped off. Then a knife fell to the ground and stuck in the wooden floor. The 3 ruffians slumped over, their wax hardened. The first fell on top of the spellbook, and the next 2 fell on top of him. "I've got to plan this better next time," grumbled Gnarls, as he set his feet and heaved the top one off to the side, careful to catch the lout's head before it hit the ground. "Can't have anyone waking prematurely." He thrust his arms among the bodies and pulled. He popped up, holding the spellbook over his head in triumph. "I've got it!" The tall dwarf struck Gnarls across the face with the blunt side of his axe. He was observing the unwritten rule of barroom brawls: no edges. Gnarls went down, clutching the newly acquired spellbook. The mace connected with Triton's shoulder, but rather than take the full force of the blow, the Sea Ranger fell with it, crashing down next to Gnarls' limp form. Responding to a crescendo in the music, dancing out of the bard's lute, Triton grabbed Bale's mailed legs and threw his own weight backwards, using the knight as a lever to kick up off the ground. Bale was more solid than Triton could have imagined, and rather than falling onto his back, the cleric simply swayed, but stayed quite rooted. The result was that both men now stood face to face. Standing on the table next to them, Lyre the bard thrummed and strummed. Coric, half-orcan, bounced lightly on her feet. She picked the axe off her shoulder. "This is good as bar fights go. No blood to mop up, no one thrown in the fireplace, and no one has spoiled my rug." The skeleton's bony feet clattered across the bar, knocking glasses in every direction, one of which smashed into a tapestry hanging on the wall. It depicted a great beast slumbering, with a ridged spine and a white flower in its mouth. Chagall lumbered after the skeleton, the hairy trinkets hanging in braids from his belt, singed as he jumped over the cooking station, catching the rug on fire. "My rug!" Coric cried in protest. Technically, it was a tapestry, a rug for the wall. Triton swung his fist into Bale the cleric's gut. It clanged into chainmail. The skin of his knuckles broke open. "First blood," he said. Edmund kicked a knife up from among the sleepers, and, catching the hilt in the air, turned away from Bale and plunged into the barmaid's chest. "Now, give me back my knife," he said, holding the hilt. She coughed blood and stabbed him with his knife in the arm. "There you go." What had started as a waltz between two thieves showing their skills became a bloody, intimate contest. Edmund tasted blood in his mouth, her blood. He thought. Sweet. The young nobleman had lived a sheltered life in a walled community. You could call it a castle. He was finally old enough to go out beyond the walls on his own and visit the country estate. You know what they say. What happens in the countryside stays in the countryside. She stabbed him again, but he didn't notice. Her blood had the most intriguing flavor. There was that great-great-great-uncle on my mother's side. Usually didn't talk about him much, didn't invite him to any family gatherings save for funerals. He still lived. He looks not much older than me. What was his secret? Edmund had always wondered. Now, as he licked his lips, he felt he had a clue. Rose the imp, not much larger than a spitting pot, hovered up to the rafters, a leg of mutton blackening in her hand. She liked how this was developing. Good versus evil, and neither sure which the other is, or which they are themselves. The barbarian and skeleton fighting, the irony is rich. If ever two beings were more of a mind, it is those two. A wizard stealing from a wizard. Oh, they'd be better to work together. The cleric Bale fighting the ranger Triton. Almost mirror images of each other, separated only by a magic medallion. Edmund. He's my kind of guy, basking in the blood. It would be a shame not to see him develop. But Ilaria, the shining light in this pit of darkness, she is the danger. Rose balled fire in her hands, kneading the flames tight together, as someone might fold flour into dough. She rose over the fray, her little wings beating at a hummingbird's pace. She was ready to throw the ball of fire. The roof might fall on my head, but The fire itself is no danger to me. Fresh air is harder for me to breathe than smoke, and flames feel good. The ceiling collapsing, though, that's something to consider. It's so much simpler to work under an open sky. So much better to burn things with a stone floor under my feet. Rose cocked her arm back. No matter. When in doubt, light it up. Then the elven bard caught her eye, strumming and singing despite the pandemonium, working encouraging words into her song here or there. Rose regarded Lyre, bravely playing music in the middle of the unfolding melee, stepping from one table as its legs crashed out from underneath to another. As she danced and played, the imp was taken in. Then a tail snuck out from the back of the elven bard's puffy pants. Rose waved her own tail in recognition. No elf are you. To Rose's trained eye, she and Lyre differed only in scale. The bard did a good job of hiding her hellish heritage, but then Rose did a good job of seeing what shouldn't be seen. Let's see if you acquired the fire resistance of our kind. With the map in hand, she and Skeletone could be on their way. The bone scroll tube lay on the ground in a pool of blood where Edmund had laid it, too busy drinking from the fallen barmaid. Rose swallowed her ball of fire and sped for it.